Hello, hello, Amy. Welcome to the Mentally About Us podcast. I'm so happy to have you today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I am excited to talk about something I have never ever heard of. And the reason I'm so happy to have you on the podcast because I love learning something new. I love learning about different ways of, healing ourselves from trauma and mental health challenges. So it's called tapping, as you say. And I think before we got on, you said EFT tapping. Is that right?
Yes, it stands for Emotional Freedom Technique.
Nice. I'm so glad my short-term memory is working. Before we get into learning more about that, I like for my audience to get to know my guests. So let's get into your past here. So you battled with some insecurities and depression. So let's talk about when that started and how those years were for you.
So, if we go back to when I was a little girl, around 4 years old, my dad was an alcoholic. And when I was about 4, he left. He left to go get sober, but he was gone for years. And my sister and I didn't hear from him. But it was my mom, my sister, and I kind of on our own. My mom mentally kind of checked out as a result of that happening. And she was under a lot of pressure as a single mom trying to raise 2 girls. But the result of my dad leaving was really, really painful. Unfortunately, kids are naturally narcissistic. And so they assume everything that happens when they are around is their fault. And so as a little kid, I just made a decision that it was my fault that my dad left, that I had done something wrong. There was something wrong with me, with the way that I was. And so that kind of started the process of me trying to be something other than who I really was and trying to please. And because I was so starved for affection and attention at the time, I really turned my focus to my sister, and I would do anything and everything that what I thought she needed in order to love. And so I would be whoever I thought she wanted me to be. I would do anything I thought she wanted me to do. And through that process, I kind of lost all sense of who I was, trying to please her so much and also trying to be something other than what my dad left. And so I was taking big chunks away from the person I thought was bad. I was taking away anger. I was taking away parts of me that were vulnerable, and I was ending up kind of a shell of a person. And it was probably in my mid to late 20s when that's when I was first really on my own. So I didn't have my family around me, or I didn't have a live-in boyfriend at the time. And that's when kind of the walls came crashing in on me because I didn't have somebody else to focus my attention on. It was really just me.
Yeah.
And realizing that I didn't have a sense of who I was and I didn't even like who I was. And all of a sudden, that's when bulimia started.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was by myself and all of those feelings and insecurities would start to manifest, I got so scared and I would just do anything to distract myself. And if for me, that was an addiction to food. And so the binging would just start immediately. Anytime I started experiencing my very deep emotions and hurts from a long, long time ago, then I would start just eating in avoidance of feeling all of those really, really hard and painful feelings. And bulimia happened as a result of that because I was such a people pleaser and so worried about people judging and criticizing me. I couldn't stand the idea of being overweight. And so I just started binging because I thought, even if I'm not going to stop binging, I at least could throw up and kind of wipe the slate clean so that nobody knew that there was something really horrible going on in the background in my alone hours.
Was your sister older than you?
Yes.
By what was the age difference, if you don't mind me asking?
2.5 years.
Okay, gotcha. Because when I was listening to your story, there were some things that connected with things that I went through growing up.
Mm.
Not our stories aren't fully, completely the exact same. I didn't have my father leave or anything like that. Well, I did have a mother that was mentally checked out, so that we could completely be on the same story right there. But I also do remember that I was feeling neglected and feeling like I wanted love from some family member because Because you mentioned about like children's being like narcissistic as like being younger, but it makes sense because when you're born, your caregiver is like your idol. You want love. Like it's just very natural for, a human being to want to be loved by their, caregiver. It's just like human nature is like within us. So, if your caregivers, your parents are not giving it to you, you go to the next person in your family, and that's your sister.
Yeah.
And then now you want to be approved by your sister and validated. So when you were doing that to try to like get her attention, did your sister like with your relation? I want to talk about your relationship dynamic with your sister.
Of course.
Was she like? Were you guys at all ever close? Was she like? Does she like bully you? Did she tease you? Like, what was that like relationship like?
I thought for many, many years that she hated me. And she says that she didn't. But my
Mm-hmm.
experience was, as I was constantly trying to get her attention and her affection, I would often get kind of brutalized in that process.
To get the attention?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So it was often teasing and bullying, like you said. There was often just a lot of resentment. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's because she was so starved for attention and affection too, but she didn't want it
Mm,
from me.
that makes
So
sense.
there was often like just resentment and anger that I was constantly trying to be with her and she was constantly trying to get what she needed from my mom. And so it was a really entangled dynamic that yeah, didn't go well. And it lasted that way at least through the time that I was living at home and she was living at home. And once we separated a little bit, our relationship was better. But it wasn't until I really did that deep healing on the
Mm-hmm.
part of me that needed it that I stopped seeking her approval constantly.
Wow. Sorry, I feel like that was like my reaction to it because it's just like you're so relatable. I think that's like the best thing I could explain that. I'm like listening to, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm not alone. Like I feel like, you know, there's always sibling rivalry and there's always sometimes I say words and it's like I don't even say it correctly. I'm cutting the part out. I'm like rivalry. Ever have those moments where you just can't talk? I don't think I've ever really met someone who really got it because you know how many times I'll like if I ever talk about like my childhood or just vent or just whatever, people always say, oh, well, just siblings are like that, or all sisters fight, or I get a lot of that. And it actually pisses me off because I can understand to an extent, yeah, like it's normal for like siblings to have like moments where they're like fighting with each other. Like that's normal. But the kind of feeling of like hate and pain
Yeah.
and you getting to the point where in reality you were self like harming with the bulimia, and for my self harming I was cutting myself.
Mm-hmm.
So like even though obviously it's different self harms, they both our experiences led us to that because we didn't know what our identity was. Like we didn't know who we are. We didn't know, like we had all this like we felt alone. We felt kind of just like, especially being like is it just you and your sister? Do you have any other siblings?
No, just us. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you're the like I'm 6.5 year difference from my sister.
Mm.
6.5. So just kind of adding that to it because everybody blamed all of our fighting and such on the age difference.
I
It was
disagree.
always like dismissed
Yeah.
because of the age difference. Anytime I like complain or vent as a child, it's just like, oh, because you guys are so far apart. And I'm just like, sure, part of that, yeah, to an extent, naturally. Like when she's a teenager, I'm a kid, we're not gonna obviously have like the same, interest. Like that's totally reasonable. But the kind of pain that I went through with her just teasing me and tormenting me and like things
Have
like she
similar.
resented me. At the time I didn't know
Right.
that she resented me. And the main reason, I think till today she does. I mean, her and I have a better relationship now. Honestly, I think sending memes to each other really nourishes our relationship these days. I'm not gonna lie. That's like how we get along. We just send each other memes of just like literally memes of like sisters like fighting with each other, or just like it'll be a meme where we're like, oh, my sister was found in the trash, and she'll send me
Right.
that, and it's just funny. So
Yeah.
like that's like it's so crazy how something like that we just mess with each other and it's like totally fun. Well, because it is. I feel like stuff like that is just fun versus like growing up as a child and I'm just making sense of the world. And all of a sudden I just hear my big sister calling me stupid, ugly, and weird, and how I'm like such an ugly person and I'm such an idiot, or being brought up like that, and my parents not really defending me properly. I mean, they'll do like the whole, I'm not going to say names. They'll be like, oh, blah, 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 stop it, or this, or guys, behave. Like, it's just a lot of that.
Yes.
But
Yes.
doesn't really do much. It's
No.
just like, yeah, you're doing your parent duty and just like saying, cut it out and da da da
Because
da.
it's not engaging with the cause of the problem. It's
Right.
engaging with the symptoms that are right on the surface. The fighting is the symptom,
Right.
and there's a deeper cause underneath there somewhere. But if nobody's willing to invest the time or the energy or even the curiosity to figure out what that is, and people are overwhelmed and we're not really encouraged to kind of dig deep into this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand why people don't do that, but when they do, they are willing to lean in. That's when we find the answers to things, and that's where we find healing, is when we get to the root cause of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think back at it, and at the end of the day, my mom did the best that she could with what she, had at the
Mhm.
time. And she probably really thought that, even though I tried my best to always communicate that it wasn't enough, but like, she didn't get it. I mean, when she had a sister too, and it's the same dynamic as well. Like, she was the younger one, and she was like teased and everything like that. So I think even her sister like hit her on the back. I think when they were fighting, like her sister like hit her on the back, and she has like asthma, so it just made it worse. So like at the
No.
end of the day, my mom had it way worse as a child. Or I think my sister one time threw a tuna can at me from my memory when I was like home alone with her. She just started throwing cans at me, and yeah, that was fun. Oh, this one
Yeah.
time where she
Those
threw me down the
things.
stairs, and all my mom saw in her point of view, because where she was sitting was just me falling down the stairs. So she yelled at me for
No.
falling down the stairs. I guess she just thought I was just like, yeah, we were just, it just tripped. Even if it wasn't, I'm a child. Like, come on.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh.
Well, actually, I don't think I was a child because I like actually complained about it on Facebook. So I was a teenager. I was probably
Okay.
like 14. I was probably at least like 13 or 14 years old. Cause yeah, I was clearly old enough to go
But
on
even
Facebook and
still,
complain
nobody
about it.
falls down the stairs on purpose. I'm surprised you got yelled at.
I have a death wish. Let's go. I think about that now, and I'm like, yeah, that's true. So I fell, and and instead of her being like, "Honey, are you okay?" It's like, "Justine, what is it?" And started screaming at me. Yeah, and I remember like I saw on the Facebook, and I guess I said it right out. I was clearly pissed. I mean, I think anyone would be pissed off if you're
Yeah.
falling down the stairs and your mom's screaming at you for falling down the stairs. Like, I'm so sorry that I fell down the stairs. Like, I just had a death wish. I probably had a death with. It's getting used to this me whole like not knowing how to talk. Yeah, so I was like, yeah, I may have not had a death wish going down, but after what happened, then I may have a death wish, and that's actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of think about the house. It's like, okay, so I went from the third floor down. It's like, okay, now a death wish. Let me go on the basement.
Oh my gosh.
It's like making jokes at this point, but just thinking
Yeah.
about it, it's just really funny. And my sister, I know like what my sister resented me for, which was something completely obviously like I didn't ask to be born, but I was born with a sick eye, born with a cataract. So they had to like take it out. So naturally my parents had to put more attention on me
Gosh.
because
I'm exact same, Justine.
you were born with
I'm
something?
yeah.
What were
Yeah.
you born with?
At 2 years old, a little involved, but the tubes that go to my bladder, like the flaps that prevent urine from going back up into your kidneys, were defective, and so I had kidney infections over and over again, chronic, starting from like when I was 1 years old. So I got all this extra attention heaped on me because of surgeries and hospital visits and being sick a lot of the time, and that's where some of her resentment came from as well. So exact same.
Yes. Yes, literally. And it's crazy because it's like we didn't ask for this.
No, God, no.
It's
No.
like you think and I still like today struggle with my whole eye situation, like because when I was 17, I was diagnosed with glaucoma in that eye.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So like the eye was already born screwed up. I had a
Mhm.
cataract. I had to remove it at a month old.
Oh
And
my
then
goodness, yeah.
17 years later, oh, it developed glaucoma now. Great. Now
Gosh.
I'm like pretty much 90% blind in the right eye. Go me. I just gotta laugh through my trauma. It's okay. I always say like, my therapist says I'm disconnected from my emotions. You had breast cancer.
Yes,
So let's
yes.
talk about that and your experience with that. So far everything I'm hearing is like your childhood going through that and now breast cancer. So let's talk more about that. Like, how was, obviously it wasn't great, I'm sure, but like, let's go into it.
Of course. So, up until that point, I was going in and out of depression, single for many years at that point, and just not finding my way through it. But when then I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I was only 31 at the time. Nobody in my family had it. There was
Wow.
no history to speak of. So it really threw me for a loop, and it was extremely scary being by myself
Mm-hmm.
and going through that. It was, I would say, easily the hardest time of my life for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Losing my hair when I was so worried and concerned about what people thought of me, felt like I was going to be a target for people. Like I was so vulnerable, and people knew that I was vulnerable because they could see that I didn't have hair. And so it made me feel just like so scared of the
Mm-hmm.
world and of my body. I was really afraid of my body because it felt like it had pulled the rug out from underneath me. This wasn't supposed to happen to me. Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
felt that way with your eye too. Like, what, how does
Oh
this,
yeah. I was like, I
like,
didn't
how
ask
does
for
this
this.
develop? But there was a part of me that really got curious about why it happened, and not in a like shake your fist at the God kind of like, why me kind of way. No, it was really a curiosity about what is it about me, about my body, about the thoughts that I have, or the food that I eat, or anything along those lines that created this. Because I could look around me at people that were kind of similar to me and know that they don't have it. So, what is it about my situation that created this cancer?
Mm-hmm.
And getting curious about it is really the thing that started me on my path towards healing. I didn't find tapping right away, but I started to truly understand how deeply our thoughts and actions influence what happens in our body.
Yes.
And when I did finally find tapping and started working on releasing all of those unexpressed emotions from childhood years and all of the trauma, that's when I started understanding truly how my negative thoughts about myself, about my fears, they all just built up in my body and they created this cancer. My personal opinion, I recognize that some people will disagree with me on that, but this is my personal opinion about how and why it happened.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the catalyst that got me on this path towards EFT tapping. And my life it's been a process of healing. It wasn't right away that I started utilizing the full potential of tapping. But once I understood how to really use it, the healing moments and the realizations have come fast and furious since then.
I want to say I completely agree with you. Going back to what you were saying about, well, it's more of triggering it, in my opinion. I feel like we all like. I mean, it's really interesting how you said that there's no history in your family because
Mhm.
typically, usually with breast cancer, there's like some type of like history of like a certain like gene, and if you're carrying it, it gets triggered by like the stress and the trauma. That's typically
Exactly.
what they say,
Yeah.
unless there's like someone somewhere down the line that had it. Because same for me, it's like, who had glaucoma?
Yeah.
I mean, I think my mom said like my great grandfather. I keep forgetting, I have to ask her again, but I remember when she did say it was kind of far from like where, like gene wise for me. So, but it's like, okay, but my glaucoma clearly developed from, most likely, I mean, the cataract removal, because they did say, I think, that if you have the cataract surgery, like when you're so young, when your eyes like developing, that there's a high chance glaucoma down the road. I mean, it makes sense. And I think my doctor recently said that she can see that my eye was developed kind of weird. And
Okay.
she was actually the first doctor that's ever like said that out of all the specialists I've seen, which kind of, I like that because it was something different. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm gonna really I'm actually at a like a doctor's, I don't know what they call that. It's like one of the best in the country.
A specialist?
Yeah. So, I mean, the way I found them, the way I was referred to them was because my medication was nothing was really working. So they referred me to this like the emergency, like this emergency room in Miami. I'm in Florida, and
Okay.
well, I had to go through there first to even get an appointment because it's one of those places that are so popular that people fly into. But I
Okay.
was able to get in, so I have her as like a doctor for like. She's in Naples, Florida. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
not really important right now. But yeah, no, I sometimes think in my head, I'm like, what developed this glaucoma? But yeah, I think I was just kind of destined for it. Maybe if my childhood wasn't as stressful and chaotic, maybe it could have been a different story. Who
Mm-hmm.
knows? But another thing too is like they say, because my mom doesn't understand why I was born with a cataract. Like she always blamed herself as a mother, which I've never ever blamed my mother for that. Like it's not her fault.
Yeah.
She didn't smoke, she didn't drink, she did everything that her doctor told her. Like she wasn't one of those people that would like be on drugs or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I don't blame her, but just her as a mother, she blames herself.
Right.
And the doctors just say, "Oh yeah, it's just a fluke."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. They do
I don't
say
either.
that the mother's like trauma and stress can go pretty much when you're pregnant. Because she did tell me that she did have a panic attack when she was pregnant with me.
Okay.
So, because she does have history of panic attacks, and I've had like two in my lifetime so far. Not
Mm-hmm.
fun.
Mm-mm.
So that could have done something, and
It
like you never know.
probably had an influence in some way.
Yeah, definitely. And there's definitely more to it than just like it happens. Like I don't like that. I like to be proactive with our health. And we can talk about the US health system and how they're very like reactive and not proactive, which is
Yeah.
very like unfortunate.
Yeah.
There's this like private company where it's like a certain scan that they can like detect like any cancers that because cancer is like you can't a lot of times you don't see it until it's late. Like actually with my glaucoma, they didn't find it until like end stage. Not even lying to you. And I think what happened was at the right eye, I couldn't even see out of it anyway because I don't have my human lens in. So everything's already crazy blurry. So I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
bother using the right eye. So probably was developing and didn't even know because I can never do like the whole ABC. They always have to do like fingers or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, that or it went really fast. I have no idea. But yeah, they didn't develop see until like end stage, which really stinks. I didn't really have a chance to reserve my vision. I still do take. I'm not like fully blind in that eye, so I still take medication for the rest of my life, and it's also not cheap medication too. Which okay, anyway,
Is there
I
any
sometimes
way
like
to
get off like track.
could they have reversed it if they had found it sooner?
No, they can just slow it down. So it's kind of like Alzheimer's. Like there's no way of like rejuvenating like those brain cells that died, but like with certain medication, it can slow it down.
Okay. That makes sense.
From like my like not my I don't have Alzheimer's, knock on wood, but my aunt passed away from Alzheimer's and she did take that medication, but it didn't really do much. From what I've heard, is I think it slowed down in the beginning, but then she died really young. She died in her like I think 60 or early oh no, like late 50s, like something
Wow,
like
that
that.
is
Like she
really young
was
for Alzheimer's.
not yeah, like she got it pretty early. I think, yeah, and it just kind of just got her really fast, which is really sad. My grandmother had it, so like you can see the gene there. So yeah, and I honestly with the Alzheimer's, because that's like I do believe like it's definitely a gene, but it's really up to you of what your lifestyle is and what you choose to do. Like if you're doing things to destroy your body, you're not healing and things, you're more likely to develop it versus like if you be more mindful of what you put in your body. I'm not saying don't drink at all, like just in moderation and just social, like not like overdoing it or like smoking, like just not just damaging your body in that way. Trying to think where I was getting with this. I feel like I go on these like rants and I'm just like, what was the point of what I was saying? I have like such bad ADHD that I'm just like talking, and I'll be like Dory and be like, wait, where are we? You want to know why that happens? I read this book about memory, and apparently, like, our brains can only remember, like, if we're talking for a long time, our brain forgets what we started with. Like, our brain can only hold information, I think, for like 30 seconds until it's gone.
Okay.
So if I'm talking, I'm losing part of the reason I started. So I'm
Yeah.
just talking, and I'm like, what? What are we talking about again? Because at first I was like, why does this keep happening? My ADHD. But then when I read that book and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense, actually. It's like
Yeah.
you have a point when you start, and then you
Uh-huh.
completely forget what that point was.
Yeah. I've had those moments too. for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I completely forgot where I was going with that. So let's go into the healing part of it, the tapping. So let's
Yeah.
start with what is it?
Good
The best
question.
way to start. I have no idea what this is. Go for it. I have no
Okay.
educate me.
Tapping is really similar to acupuncture in that it utilizes the 14 energy meridians found in Chinese medicine, but instead of putting needles on your acupressure points, you are using the percussion of tapping on them. So, but it's also a powerhouse because it incorporates the energy healing of our meridians. It incorporates cognitive therapy, where you are talking about what it is you want to release while you're doing the tapping. And it incorporates somatic therapies because tapping on your body actually really focuses your energy in the present moment instead of worrying about the past or worrying about the future. Tapping on your body will bring your all of your awareness kind of back into this present moment. So there are a lot of different spots that you can tap on your body. They all correspond to a different energy meridian. So there are a lot of different tapping spots. They are all just acupressure points. It's really important that you tap on the exact right spot. So this is like the only circumstance where I would encourage you to be a perfectionist, because there's a spot like at the beginning of your eyebrows, and if you're tapping somewhere up in the middle of your forehead, that's not gonna be as effective. But what you do is you tap through all of these energy meridians while talking about what it is you want to release.
Mm.
So, for example, if you are really hurt over an experience, you can tap on what's called your karate chop point right here and say something like, even though I was really hurt by what happened, I love and accept myself anyway. And you say those things 3 times, and then you go through all of the other points and you say things like, I was so hurt. I can't believe that person did that to me. I feel really betrayed by their actions and their words. And I just want to honor all my feelings at the deepest level. Anybody in my circumstance would feel the exact same way. So I feel really hurt by that. And it's normal and natural. But I want to be willing to let it go eventually, knowing that I'm the only one that's hurt in this situation and I don't need to keep hurting myself in the process. So you kind of go through this process of honoring and acknowledging all of your emotions around it. And before you start tapping, you kind of take a rating. You can say, well, I feel hurt on a level of 9 out of 0 to 10. It's really, really intense right now and it hurts my heart. And so you just go through the tapping process. You acknowledge and honor it over and over and over again, giving those emotions their day in court. And then all of a sudden you can take a rating again, and maybe it goes down to a 7 the first time, and then maybe a 4 the next time, and then all the way down to 0. And all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I don't feel hurt anymore. And it gives you a fast track through the challenging emotions that if we don't lean into them and don't acknowledge them and honor them, they just end up building up in our bodies
Mhm.
and eventually causing something like anxiety or depression. There's even an element of unexpressed emotions in things like ADHD and bipolar disorder.
Me?
Yeah, yeah. Those are all trauma informed responses. So those are like symptoms rather than the cause of your problems. Those are symptoms for emotions and experiences and traumas that need to be worked through on an emotional level, on a mental level.
You literally like pointed out like two things that I struggle with. Well, I'm not really sure. I wouldn't say I struggle because I do have like my whole healing cocktail that I like do and I'm stable.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have ADHD. I do have bipolar 2 and
Okay.
BPD
Okay.
and CPTSD.
You got them all.
I know.
Yeah.
I have all the letters of the alphabet.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just learned the CPTSD like last year.
Mm.
Like the ADHD was like, I mean, I knew that since like high school, and the bipolar was diagnosed after like a self-harming episode. Um yeah. But that's I want to go more into that. So you were saying how the bipolar and ADHD is a symptom?
Yeah, it's a trauma informed result, meaning that there as trauma. And I'd like to take a minute to explain the different types of trauma because I think there's
Yeah, go
often a
for it.
misunderstanding about what trauma is. So there's big T trauma, which most people recognize as trauma, which could be like physical assault,
Mm-hmm.
sexual assault, a big car accident, or a major health crisis, something along those lines that most people would recognize that is definitely a trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also something called little t trauma, which is like little, I have a friend that calls it paper cuts of trauma that happen over years or even decades that over time can cause more damage than having a big T trauma. And people don't often recognize the little t trauma
Yeah.
as trauma because it doesn't feel big enough to them to warrant that word, to warrant all of the attention that that word can bring to it. And so they don't pursue healing because they don't think they have trauma that needs to be healed. So, for example, it could be like in my case, an angry sibling that over time I got really, really afraid of anger.
Mm-hmm.
And I started walking on eggshells and, like I said, trying to be whatever my sister wanted me to be so that I wouldn't get her angry. I developed this need for perfection because I wanted everything in the environment to be perfect. So, to make sure that it wouldn't set her off. Now, that is little t trauma
Mm-hmm.
because you adapt so many things in your environment to try and avoid the pain that you end up being like just a shell of a version of yourself that
Mm-hmm.
you used to be. Another example would be like a critical parent or
Mm-hmm.
even bullying at school. Even if something physically doesn't happen, they trigger what I call foundational fears, where you fear maybe rejection or abandonment, or there's a fear of not belonging, or a fear of not being good enough, or not worthy or deserving of love. Like those are the foundational fears that those little t traumas and even the big T traumas, but the little t traumas can trigger. And then from there, it creates limiting beliefs about who you actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that create bipolar and create anxiety attacks, ADHD. There's an element of that
Mm-hmm.
because of those unresolved, painful issues. That pain is still present in our body. And
Mm-hmm.
especially for things like anxiety and ADHD, people that suffer with that, including myself, all of their energy is swirling up in your head. And you can probably recognize this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got this swirling cycle of thoughts, and it's hard to get out of that cycle of thoughts. And it can steamroll you into an anxious state, especially if there's worry involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
But when we stop those thoughts, stop that process, bring our energy and awareness back down into our bodies are not a safe place
Mm-hmm.
because all of the unresolved emotions are there. So our energy wants to get up into our heads again. And it's really the energy, it's the process of bringing our awareness back down into our body where all of those uncomfortable emotions are stored so that we can deal with them. That will help the healing process and help us to quiet those anxious thoughts, quiet those elements of ADHD and bipolar. I'm not sure about kind of the other things. I do know and have clients that have suffered from the things that we've talked about.
Yeah, the CPTSD, because you were talking about like the small T trauma,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much what the CPTSD is like complex post traumatic stress disorder.
Yes, yes, yes.
And yeah, I didn't know it existed until I had a therapist that diagnosed me with that last year. And I was like, what is that? Because, when I think of PTSD, I think of getting raped or getting
Yes,
shot or war. That's the
yes.
stuff that we think about. We think that, okay, that's it. And then now I'm learning over these years, I'm just like, crap, I have so much trauma and like, even though I never got shot, or I mean, I've been in car accidents but not severe car accidents, like things like that. But I guess I just didn't know all the little things that manifested together, and you're saying it was like worse. And actually, I think my therapist said the same thing.
It
And
is
then
worse.
also just
Yeah.
health, my glaucoma, like
Mm-hmm.
constantly having to go to doctors and the surgery and all of that combined. And I was bullied in school a lot too. I had to leave one of my schools because I was that bullied.
Yeah, all of it would, I mean, those are many levels of different types of traumas. And when they're not dealt with, when they're not kind of, if we don't know how to process our emotions around it and actually feel our emotions around it, then they just manifest in our lives as these,
Mm-hmm.
when the way to actually deal with them is to go back to the trauma itself and try to unravel that and release it from our bodies. And tapping is the thing that allows us to do that.
Yeah. Where did you, I don't know if you brought this up before, but like, where did you learn how to do this? Like, does someone inspire you? Does someone like come to you be like, hey, try this out? Like,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So I learned it from a friend that I crewed a Tony Robbins event with. If you're familiar with Tony Robbins, he's
Who
a
isn't?
self-help guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was crewing an event, and friend that crewed with me called me maybe a month later and said, I found this thing. It's really amazing. I want to try it on you. And so we had one session together, but that was moving a little too slow for him. So he went on and created a documentary, and he's got great success with bringing tapping to the world on huge, huge levels. But the seed was planted for me, and that was all it took because I recognized how fast it works. And for the longest time, so I got certified really soon after that to be a tapping coach. And that was 16, 17 years ago now.
Hmm.
But I had kind of limited success with it. And it was because I was working on just the symptoms. I didn't understand that there was those complex traumas that are underneath all of that. So I was working on the symptoms like ADHD or anxiety and having limited results with it. I was thinking I should be able to leave all of this stuff behind. Like, why am I still getting anxious if I'm working on anxiety? But I wasn't working on the causes of my anxiety. And it wasn't until I figured out what the causes were and applied tapping to that I was actually realized how powerful tapping truly is. So I was introduced by a friend, but then through my own process of kind of trying tapping in a lot of different ways, I figured out how incredibly powerful it is. And that was when I had my moment where I'm like, I can't keep this to myself. There are
Yeah.
too many people struggling and not understanding why they're struggling when they've got this tool that they can use anytime, anywhere, and start helping themselves to heal.
Yeah. Wow. And when you were doing that, like the whole tapping, I mean, I had to do it like on my own and like do the whole talking because I was kind of like tapping to your stuff.
Yes, yes.
This is kind of like, I don't know if this is relates or anything, but I always catch myself kind of like tapping, not really like, actually, wait, no, I'm not gonna, I actually have done stuff like this before,
Mm,
just
mhm,
randomly, because
mhm.
it felt like kind of nice.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
this like is this like a pressure point or whatever? I don't
Not
know.
right there specifically, like on top of your cheekbones right there, and then
Yeah,
underneath
yeah.
your
Like I would
nose.
just do things like that randomly. I thought I was just doing it just because my skin feels nice. I've been using
Yeah,
this nice serum. See, I'm
yeah,
shining a little bit, and I just
yeah.
like the feeling of it. And
Huh.
I remember I was like, it's kind of soothing. Like it feels like is it right
Yeah,
here?
you could have intuitively just been connecting with some part of yourself where you knew it was offering some relief. The great part of the scientific side of it is that when we have trauma,
Hmm.
there we, like I said, develop fears and limiting beliefs as a result of that. There's like big shells around the trauma. The trauma is at the core, and then the fears are on the outside, and then on the outside of that are limiting beliefs.
Hmm.
So when we are going throughout our day and all of a sudden we start feeling anxious, but we don't know why, what has happened is that the limiting beliefs and the fears and the trauma have been triggered by something that happened in our day. And
Hmm.
nine times out of 10, we are completely unaware of it. We just know that we feel anxious all of a sudden. But what's happened is the amygdala, which is the stress center part of our brain, has
Hmm.
been triggered, and our body floods with cortisol, which is the stress hormone.
Hmm.
And what tapping does, you might not recognize it in a moment, but just tapping on our energy meridians, even without saying anything, will start reducing that cortisol, that stress hormone in our body 43% faster than if you had done nothing else. So immediately you're going to start feeling more calm by tapping through your energy meridians. Now, if you take a moment and try and figure out what's underneath this anxiety attack that I'm experiencing, what is happening in my life right now that is causing me great fear?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I feel so fearful about that? Like maybe if I'm during the process of building the app, I was extremely anxious because it was triggering my fear of failure. It was triggering my fear of rejection, all of these foundational fears. And so I was constantly working on those things while I was trying to develop the app so that I wouldn't have all of these anxiety attacks.
Mm-hmm.
After working through them over and over and over again, I don't have a fear of failure anymore. I know that failure is something to be embraced because that will mean that I'm making progress all the time. So now I have gotten rid of one of the things that triggers me into anxiety, and I don't experience anxiety about that anymore.
Wow. I think I just
So,
had an awakening right now.
say that again?
I think I just had like an awakening right now because,
Interesting.
well, because like what you're saying, because you're building the app, and we'll get into that shortly. 'Cause I want
Yes.
to hear more about it. But building an app, like that's huge.
It was huge. It was a
That's
beast of a
huge.
project.
Doing
Yes.
something like that, I'm
Yeah.
curious to learn more about that because there's like thoughts I like was like I want to make an app like I'm something mental health related.
Oh, wonderful.
I never it was a thought I had like 5 years ago. I always had big ideas. It's just also just part of like my nature as like an entrepreneur spirit.
Yeah.
Anyway, not going into that, but I briefly mentioned how I was taking acting classes, right? Did I
Mhm.
mention that? I don't know if I did that on recording or off recording. Yesterday I have it every Monday, and yesterday I every time I'm in that room and I know I have to like perform something, the anxiety takes over. I had to memorize like this Nike commercial thing. And it wasn't like it was a super long monologue. Like it really wasn't. But, I'm learning with the memorization because that's something it's hard.
Yeah.
And so I was like practicing so much to make sure like, okay, I got this. Like I'm prepared because we had to like learn and then perform it. I was like, I had a week to practice it, practicing every single day. I was literally recording myself, practicing at like 2 in the morning. I was really practicing in the shower, like just a random, like I was very committed to it. And I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
yes. And I practiced like on the way. I like at every stoplight, I did it. Like I was like, I'm ready. I got this.
yeah,
And then I went up there and I forgot my lines. Well, I didn't like forget my line. 'Cause I know my lines. It was just and you can feel the physical like suffocation of
mhm,
like your body freezing. And then it's like I try my best to not get angry because I know when you get angry, you're just magnifying it. And also just I'm trying to work on that like being self-critical and
mhm.
just trying to work through it. And I think I was also just like open about it too, just being like, yeah, like it's the anxiety that's like making it hard for me because I know I can do this. I practice this. I know that I can naturally be really good at this. It's just like all of like the bullying and how I was treated as a child, like all of it
Yeah,
manifesting and creating those limited beliefs. When I go up there, I feel like a little girl again.
yeah. Your
I feel
fear
that
of
little girl
yes.
that was bullied
Yeah,
and was
fear
put
of
on a
being
pedestal.
judged and criticized, and even if you had your performance down when you by yourself, the fact that so many other eyes are now on you just amplifies everything. There are fears being triggered underneath there that are deep and they are painful, and no, it's no wonder your body goes into fight or flight mode because it's trying to protect you. It's trying to protect you from something that your subconscious views as really dangerous.
And so I'm really like the kind of anxiety that I feel when I'm being pushed in that class out of my comfort zone is the similar anxiety I felt as a little girl. Like I feel like there's a certain different type of anxiety.
Mhm.
Like it's just a certain like if you feel it's like one of those things like like you would know. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like you can't describe it, but the way you're saying with the whole protecting myself is that I was put on a pedestal to perform, and I'm like, oh, crap, what's my line? And it's like I'm focusing. Like honestly, I don't. I think the first class I was scared that people were judging me, but I think I was afraid of being judged by the coach.
Oh, yeah.
Even I mean, technically you are being judged by the coach, but I think I was like scared that I was gonna be like, oh my god, this girl's horrible. Like, why is she even here? You know what I mean? But she's very nice, and obviously they give constructive criticism, so it's like that's their job. If they weren't doing that, then what am I paying for? So when I signed
Yeah,
for this
but
class,
You love something that much and you enjoy it that much, the threat of somebody not liking your performance or thinking that you suck, it gives it so much more weight to it, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
even if they're supposed to be there critiquing your performance, our just inherent little human heart just wants approval. It wants approval and connection. And when it doesn't get it, then it feels really scary and dangerous. So it's just that part of us that constantly needs to feel important and loved and really good at whatever it is we're doing.
And I think the coach knows that because
Mm-hmm.
yesterday we went up there at first to like do like a practice and get be critiqued before they film it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was practicing it, that's when I like forgot my line. I was messing up and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But then when I was going up there to do like the actual like filming, I remember she was like, Justine, I really think this is your breakthrough class. And I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, like I see your confidence. And I'm like, and then I got up there and I did it. I was like, hell yeah.
Nice.
So I kind of wonder if she like did it because she knew what she like, she knew what she was doing. But I don't know. But I can tell you that it definitely completely changed how I felt. Like I went up there like scared, but then when she said that, I felt a sense of relief.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went up there, I was like, oh my God, like she really thinks like this about. And then I was like, and then I nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Such a
amazing.
change.
A few words can shift in you. Yeah.
Like if you could think about it physically, it's like a person going up tense, tense, tense. Oh, just I think your breakthrough class. Really? It was like a huge change, like tight. Oh,
Yeah.
it tells me. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh my God, I think about it now and like it's yeah, it's so true with that. Okay, so let's get into the app. How did you think of the app? Like, tell me the process. Like, I'm just curious and like, what is it?
So the idea was actually offered by some professional colleague.
Mhm.
And at first I was like, no, I can't build an app. I'm just little me, right?
Just a
But
girl.
I'm just a girl. But I couldn't let go of the idea.
Hmm.
And it really satisfied that part of me that wanted to offer tapping to the masses.
Hmm.
And when I started doing some research on what was out there at the time, I really noticed that there was a big hole in that there was at least one tapping app, but it really only touched the surface and it wasn't harnessing the full power of tapping. So, for example, the tapping scripts that it offers would put a band aid on feelings of anxiety, which is really important because we need to put a band aid on something sometimes just to get throughout our day,
Right.
right?
Yes.
But when we have the time and energy to address the root cause of that, then and get rid of anxiety altogether, that was where I wanted to go with my app. And that's the hole that I was seeing. I wasn't seeing the capability out there to honestly offer healing at the root level for people.
Hmm.
And so that was what got me going. And like I said, it was really a beast of a project because it's just me.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
I did hire a developer to develop the app, but it was just me creating all of the content. And
Hmm.
so I wrote out, at this point, there's 160 plus scripts on the app. So I wrote them all out. I recorded them all. I edited them all for time. I have another team member who edited them for sound. But then the app team put it all on the site and we kind of engineered it all in a way that makes it easy for people to use. So on the app, there's like an avatar that has both blinking lights showing you where you should be tapping at the right time in the tapping round, but it also has verbal cues and there are a lot of videos showing people how to address things like anxiety and depression, really big topics that if people went to the site, they wouldn't know where to start.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of videos talking about how to address things like anxiety, depression, addiction, procrastination, big topics that people don't often understand what is underneath it.
Yeah.
So hopefully I have bridged a gap for people in helping to understand their behavior, but also helping them to find a way out of it in a really gentle and easy and cost-effective way.
So it's called Soar with Tapping app.
Yeah. Yes. Soar
So
with
it's
tapping.
available now for
It's
like download.
available
Is it on
on
both?
Apple and Google
Google
stores.
Store. When did you come out with it?
We launched a year ago, September. So it's been about a year and a half so far.
Yeah, I'm seeing
And
it
we
right
just
now.
finished creating a new onboarding process, a little gentler way to kind of grab users by the hand who are not familiar with tapping, and explains a little bit about how and why it works.
Uh-huh.
But we're also adding new tapping scripts all the time. We're working on adding a new fertility and women's health section right now.
Yeah.
I'm also working on a sex section. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to tackle a lot of the shame and guilt that often accompanies that form of pleasure, to
Mm-hmm.
kind of help people in that area. Yeah. So we're constantly adding and upgrading and trying to make it better.
I'm like downloading it right now.
Oh, good. Well, and I do want to tell your listeners that if they go to my website, they can go to soarwithtaping.com/podcast dash special. They will find a code there that they can enter into the app and redeem a 50% off coupon for the first annual subscription.
I'm definitely gonna put that website in the description so people can check it out. But Amy, I enjoyed my conversation with you so much.
Me too, Justine.
I had a breakthrough with you.
I'm so glad.
Yes, yes. Okie dokie. All right, thanks guys for listening. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Stay tuned for next week's episode.